One of the things, by the way, Doug, I find is interesting is the plans for Spetsnaz to poison the water and the food in Washington, D.C., and to literally poison the Potomac. Well, I got news for you. You know, they didn't even have to do that. The mental poisoning in that part of the country is unbelievable. Let me read this because this is something that I think people need to understand about Spetsnaz. Most people will hear you or I talk about it, or maybe read Jeff Nyquist's article. But here's a quote, again, from Bezmenov, and he said, the inside story of the Soviet Special Forces. Having within its sphere an organization like Spetsnaz and having tested its potential on numerous exercises, Soviet High Command came to the conclusion that Spetsnaz could be used with success not only against tactical but also against strategic nuclear installations like submarine bases, weapon stockpiles, aircraft bases, and missile launching sites. Spetsnaz could be used, too, they realized, against the heart and blood supply of the state, its source of distribution of energy, power stations, transformer stations, and power lines, as well as oil and gas pipelines and storage points, pumping stations and oil refineries. Putting even a few of the enemy's more important power stations out of action could present them with a catastrophic situation. Not only would there be no light, factories would be brought to a standstill, lifts would cease to work, those are elevators, the refrigeration installations would be useless, hospitals would find it almost impossible to function, blood stored in refrigerators would begin to coagulate, traffic lights, petrol pumps, and trains would come to a halt, computers would cease to operate. I would just like to to draw back the attention to everyone that when the joint training exercises were announced at Fort Carson in Colorado, that's when all the forest fires started. I had eyewitnesses, Doug. I sent you their emails. They saw people in black Suburbans throwing out incendiary devices. I had fire forensic guys contact me from that area. They were actually working on the fire line, saying, Steve, we found chemical components of stuff we've never seen before, and had to send it to get analyzed. Meanwhile, why is this critical? Well, for the people in northern Colorado, it becomes very critical because Denver becomes a provisional capital of the United States as soon as Washington, D.C. gets taken out. The idea of burning down the forests, everyone, is to deny anybody who would be a flea or a counterinsurgent, who would be fleeing to the woods, or counterinsurgents, any access of hiding out. In other words, escape and evasion. Now we're seeing in San Francisco, which I think is very unique, the potential for the entire city of San Francisco to be without water because I think the fire is within, 2 miles from the Hetch Hetchy Reservoir. And so the thing that I got to tell you, Doug, I go on record. I've been on record for years. You've had me on your show. Thank you, and you've been gracious. But this is full-scale gray terror, and now we're moving from gray terror into strategic nuclear launches. The Iranians obviously are not Iraq. This is what I'm trying to get across to people. The thing that even I think the scandalous high command in the U.S. military doesn't get is we're talking about principalities and powers. We're talking about one of the strongest supernatural entities behind Iran. It never basically just left. It just went dormant for whatever reason. But now we're dealing with something that basically is a kingdom-destroying empire. We're talking about, obviously, the Medo-Persian Empire. We're talking about that which destroyed Babylon. We're talking about if the United States is, and I believe with all my heart, it's Mystery Babylon. You can argue it until you're blue in the face, but, those that think that Babylon is going to be rebuilt on the plains of Shinar are grossly deceived. What they are is they're dispensationalists. They believe their own charts, and their charts are just inaccurate. The point being is that the United States fits the definition of Mystery Babylon. Before Richard Coombs passed away, he wrote the book America the Babylon, still the best thing ever written on it, America the Babylon. I think he gives, 100 or 200 reasons why America's Babylon. But the difference is, guess who destroys Babylon? The Persians and the Medes. God has stirred up the spirit of the Medes and the Persians. So I got to tell you something. Knowing ancient history, knowing the warfare in the supernatural realm, this is not child's play. They're going to get their, let's just say this, their burrows royally branded. They're going to get their you-know-what's kicked. And I'm talking about in the realms that they think that the gods of the Sumerians are on their side. The gods of the Sumerians, that's what they call the fallen angels, by the way, the U.S. military does, the ancient Sumerian gods. those guys have as much contempt for humanity as their general, Lucifer, Satan, does, and we're going to see a full-scale heavenly conflict being carried out on earth, but it's also going to be visible. That which has been invisible is going to be made visible. I can't tell you how many emails I get of people having supernatural, demonic encounters, Doug. It's off the charts. It's just simply off the charts.
Now, that's interesting because I'm starting to get these emails as well, and this is new to me, Steve. With the exception of what you've told me and from your books, this is new to me. I've never seen the number of emails I've been getting about reports like this about some. What is this? Like a ripping of the veil of some type of veil between? Okay, all right. Well, that's. Wow.
This is what Jesus spoke about, that the gates of hell would not prevail. The gates of hell are opening, and you can call it Hellgate, Can I tell you something? The Democrats may have had their Watergate years ago, or the Republicans, but now they're going to get their Hellgate. And what's going to, when Jesus said the gates of hell will not prevail, well, it's not the gate that you got to worry about, it's what comes through the gate. It's not what is, it's like going to the zoo. You can say, well, gee, this rail will not prevail against me. Yeah, jump over the rail and see how hungry grizzlies, think you're in the millennium. By the way, I get a lot of preterists. Preterists believe that the book of Revelation's already been fulfilled and we're in the millennial reign of Jesus Christ. I'll give anybody a free ticket to San Diego Zoo, and they can go jump into the lion cage before feedings, and let's just see if the lion lays down with the lamb. It's ridiculous. Everybody is, let's get back to Spetsnaz, because this is an important paragraph I've got to read, okay?
All right.
Talking about gray terror, that time right before what we're seeing now. That's what we're seeing, okay? The overture is carried out by agents of the Secret Service of Soviet satellite countries and by mercenaries recruited by intermediaries. The principal method employed at this stage is gray terror. That is a kind of terror which is not conducted in the name of the Soviet Union. The Soviet Secret Services do not at this stage leave their visiting cards or leave other people's cards. The terror is carried out in the name of an already existing extremist group not connected in any way with the Soviet Union or in the name of a fictitious organization. The GRU, which is the military intelligence arm, reckons that in this period its operations should be regarded as natural disasters. I want to read that again. The GRU reckons that in this period of time its operations should be regarded as natural disasters, actions by forces beyond human control, mistakes by people, or as terrorist acts by organizations not connected with the Soviet Union. The terrorist acts carried out in the course of the overture require very few people, very few weapons, and little equipment. In some cases, all that may be needed is one man who has a weapon, nothing more than a screwdriver, a box of matches, or a glass ampule with something in it. Some of the operations can have catastrophic consequences. For instance, an epidemic of infectious diseases at some of the most important naval bases in the West could have the effect of having the combined naval might of the Soviet Union's enemies. See, this is what they've done. This I have to take my hat off. They have orchestrated it to such a point that the U.S. military has become so focused on its people, the taxpayers, and us, everybody who has basically been, a hardworking American citizen. We're now the enemies, and the enemies are laughing their rear ends off because they're so focused on us, they don't see what's being done to them. Again, I want to make this clear, Doug. This is so important. And W, if you're listening and, with your context, you ought to really make sure your friends in the military understand this. They are assigned specific assassins. In other words, you can call them Agent A, B, C through Z in whatever language you want, but Agent A, B, C through Z is assigned a specific military leader of specific rank. Everything that can be known about that leader who is assigned to the assassin is in memory. All of the habits, all of the proclivities, all of the travel plans, where the kids, grandkids, everything, all of it's known. So this is what's in play now, Doug. This is why I'm screaming at the top of my lungs. If you're on Facebook, again, I'll say this. I have yet to see someone make me a convincing article that they're there because Jesus put you there. It is an intelligence-gathering, self-replicating intel dossier that you're not only building on yourself but on your friends. Those of you that are absolutely taking pictures of everything you do from the moment you wake up to the moment you put on your makeup to the moment you go to bed, either by yourself or with someone else, and bragging about your sex exploits, that will all be used against you. And even it's interesting because V was on your show talking about that, how they're going to change the whole structure of credit rating and credit scores. And now did you see that they're going to basically look at who a person's Facebook accounts were? Ladies and gentlemen, that's a home run for V on that one.